Alrighty, guys. Today I'm back with another analog horror. If a substitute teacher shows up in your classroom, stay silent. I feel like this is kind of like me watching a bunch of isekai animes would be considered slop, but you know what? I like these videos and they're pretty entertaining. So I'm gonna go ahead and watch this one. Nice, crisp, 1844 long. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into it. I am using headphones actually.
If a substitute teacher enters your classroom and you don't recognize them, do not speak. Remain completely silent.
Okay.
This message is issued by the Emergency Coordination Center. Please listen closely and follow the instructions. This is not a drill. At approximately 9:23 a.m. this morning, a student's pencil began writing on its own during second period math. The lead moved across the paper, forming perfect letters that spelled "Good morning,
About that.
class," while the substitute teacher stood motionless at the front of the room. The
That's
student
creepy.
had not touched the pencil. The substitute had not spoken a single word. As of 11:45 a.m. today, Tuesday, November 14th, we have received reports from 17 schools across 3 counties regarding unauthorized substitute teachers appearing in classrooms. These individuals are not in our employment database. They have no teaching credentials on file. Most concerning, students who speak in their presence experience immediate and severe medical complications. Remember this clearly. Silence means safety.
I
Silence
remember that.
means safety. We will repeat this phrase throughout this broadcast as conditions deteriorate. 3 incidents this morning demonstrate the escalating threat. At Roosevelt Elementary, a 3rd grader raised her hand to ask for the bathroom.
What
The
happened?
moment she spoke, her voice changed pitch, becoming deeper, older, unfamiliar. She has not spoken normally since.
Ooh.
At Central High, a student said, "Good morning," to what appeared to be their regular biology teacher. The
Okay.
substitute turned around, and the student's desk chair began rocking back and forth on its own for the remainder of the period. At Maple Creek Middle School, when a
So, from what I'm guessing, is you turn old if you speak. Not entirely sure. That's my theory as of right now. Let's see what happens to the next person.
boy called out an answer during what he thought was a pop quiz, every other student in the room turned to stare at him in perfect unison. They did not look away for 47 minutes. These substitute teachers appear without warning, usually during first or second period when regular staff are briefly absent. They carry no identification. They wear typical teacher clothing, cardigans, button-down shirts, slacks. But the fabric appears faded, as if the colors have been drained out over decades. Most disturbing, witnesses report their clothing sometimes appears to move slightly, as though something underneath is breathing. A substitute appeared yesterday at Westfield High School in room 207, where sophomore English was scheduled. The regular teacher, Mrs. Collins, had called in sick that morning. No replacement was requested through proper channels. Yet students arriving for second period found someone standing behind Mrs. Collins' desk, writing silently on the blackboard. The
Yeah.
writing covered the entire board in perfect cursive.
And maybe it was a teacher assistant. You know, sometimes if there's a new teacher, they would be placed with an actual teacher to like help get a feel of what the class is like for the remainder of the year. Sometimes they get a since they will leave early. You know, I don't know if they do well or something. I'm not sure, but that is possible. That's maybe happen. I'm not quite sure though.
Today, we will learn about the importance of listening without speaking. Please take your seats. Do not ask questions. Do not make comments. Do not say hello. Students later described feeling compelled to follow these instructions, though none remembered reading the board carefully. They sat in their assigned seats and waited. The
Huh?
substitute never introduced themselves. They gestured toward the board, and new text appeared. Turn to page 47 in your literature book. One student, Ethan Carter, whispered to his friend about not having the book. The substitute's head turned toward Ethan with what students described as mechanical precision. Ethan immediately felt a sharp pain behind his eyes.
What the?
His nose began bleeding.
Oh.
When he tried to speak again, to call for help, no sound came from his throat.
Oh.
He spent the rest of the period pointing frantically at
Okay, so maybe my freaking what it's called. I know my hypothesis. That's what it is. It was a little bit wrong. Maybe they don't turn old. I guess that can happen to some, but not all. So it looks like it just depends from situation to situation.
His mouth while other students watched in silence.
I would.
Ethan was taken to the school nurse after class. His voice returned 3 hours later, but he now speaks only in whispers and refuses to explain what happened. His parents report he has not spoken above a whisper since the incident. At Lincoln Elementary, a substitute appeared in Mrs. Reynolds' kindergarten classroom during story time.
Huh?
The children, ages 5 and 6, were naturally chatty and interactive.
Yeah.
When the substitute
That kid's
pointed to
over.
the reading corner, the children gathered around as they always did during story time. The substitute opened a picture book,
Ooh.
though staff later confirmed no such book existed in the classroom library. Parents of the children described
That's not too crazy. Maybe they just wanted to bring in their own book, because it's actual appropriate, It's all good.
it as having wrong colors and pictures that moved when you weren't looking directly at them.
Maybe it's one of those
The
optical illusion
substitute
ones.
never spoke, but somehow the children understood they were supposed to look at the pictures in complete silence. Little Lily Parker, age 6, pointed at one of the pictures and said, "That house looks scary." The substitute closed the book immediately. Lily's finger, the one she had used to point, turned ice cold. Her mother later told investigators that Lily's fingertip remained cold to the touch for 18 hours after the incident, despite normal circulation and no signs of frostbite. Lily now refuses to point at anything. When asked why, she says only, "Pointing makes the cold come back."
Maybe what happens is it depends on what they do and how they break a. Depends on what happens.
Silence means safety. This phrase has become critical as we track the pattern. Dr. Laura Miller, principal at Eastside Elementary, attempted to intervene when parents began calling about a substitute teacher no one had hired. She entered the classroom during third period reading time and found 30 students sitting in perfect rows, hands folded, eyes forward. The substitute stood behind the teacher's desk holding an open book. Dr. Miller approached the substitute and said, "Excuse me, I need to see your credentials and hiring paperwork." The substitute looked up from the book. Dr. Miller later described the experience as looking into the face of someone who had been waiting for decades for someone to ask that question. The substitute's mouth opened, but instead of words, Dr. Miller heard the sound of pages turning, dozens of pages flipping rapidly, though no books in the room were being touched. Dr. Miller felt compelled to leave immediately.
I
She
would
backed
too.
out of the classroom and closed the door.
I would
When
also
she
do that.
returned with 2 security officers 20 minutes
Dang.
later, the classroom was empty. All 30 students sat in the hallway outside the room, silent and motionless.
I was about to say that they kidnapped them, but I guess not. That's good. They didn't kidnap the.
The substitute was gone, but the blackboard now read, "Questions interrupt learning. Questions will not be answered."
So maybe when there's something happens that's not a rule, you won't necessarily have a bad thing happen to you because it's not one of the rules. But depending on what it is, it will be added as a rule to not break.
At Jefferson High School, a substitute appeared during Mr. Davis's AP History class. Senior student Madison Brooks, student body president and valedictorian candidate, noticed the substitute had no lesson plan visible and no materials prepared. Madison raised her hand and asked, "What will we be covering in class today?" The substitute pointed to the whiteboard. Text appeared. "We are covering the sound of silence. Please demonstrate." Madison, confused by the response, asked again, "I don't understand the assignment. Could you please explain?" The substitute walked to Madison's desk and stood directly beside her chair. Other students report the temperature in the room dropped noticeably. Madison's breath became visible in the air. She tried to ask another question, but discovered she could no longer form words. Her mouth moved, but no sound emerged. The substitute returned to the front of the room. New text appeared on the board. Perfect understanding has been achieved. Class will continue in this manner. Madison remains unable to speak normally. Medical examinations show no physical damage to her vocal cords or throat. She can whisper single words with great effort, but any attempt at normal speech fails completely.
Yeah, I think I am right. Depending on the situation of how you break the rule, it will determine what happens to you, as well as there's something that's not already been set in stone that you have been told you'll be told first, and then after that something happen. Actually, just like
Her academic future, including college plans, is now uncertain. Silence means safety. We cannot emphasize this enough as these incidents multiply. At Riverside Middle School, science teacher Mr. Bennett returned early from a dentist appointment to find a substitute conducting his 6th grade biology class. Mr. Bennett had not arranged for coverage, and the main office had no record of sending anyone to his room. Mr. Bennett entered his classroom and announced, "I'm back. Thank you for covering my class, but I can take over now." The substitute turned to face him. Students later reported that Mr. Bennett's expression changed immediately, from professional courtesy to what they described as the look you get when you realize you've made a terrible mistake. The substitute gestured toward the blackboard. Text appeared. The lesson is not finished. Please observe quietly. Mr. Bennett, a 15-year teaching veteran, responded with appropriate authority. "I appreciate your help, but this is my classroom and my students. I need you to sign out at the main office." The substitute walked to Mr. Bennett's desk and placed both hands flat on the surface. Students report that every piece of paper on the desk, lesson plans, handouts, tests, began moving on its own. Papers flipped open to blank pages. Text began appearing on the blank sheets. The same sentence repeated dozens of times. "The lesson is not finished." Mr. Bennett attempted to gather the papers, demanding again that the substitute leave. As he reached for the papers, his hands began shaking uncontrollably. The shaking spread up his arms, then through his entire body. He could not stop the tremors long enough to speak clearly. Mr. Bennett has returned to teaching, but his hands still shake whenever he attempts to write lesson plans or grade papers. He has requested a transfer to administrative duties. At Oak Grove High School, when Assistant Principal Megan Turner attempted to escort a substitute from the building,
I'm not gonna. I thought he was gonna be able to like actually get the substitute teacher out. Substitute teacher out because the way he stood on his ground and demanded it, not like demanded in a disrespectful way, but in like a nice manner way. And I thought would actually do so, but it seems like it won't leave until it has achieved what it's trying to teach. Silence. Those. That's just a theory.
she found herself unable to walk in a straight line. Her
Okay.
movements became erratic and uncontrolled, as though she were navigating through an invisible maze. Security footage shows her walking in complex patterns, turning corners where no corners existed, stopping at barriers no one else could see. The substitute stood motionless in the hallway, watching her struggle with apparent interest. After 17 minutes of this, Miss Turner found herself back at the exact spot where she had started the escort attempt. The substitute had not moved. 3 days ago, Deputy Rachel Hayes responded to Hillcrest Elementary to investigate complaints about a substitute teacher with no employment records. Deputy Hayes entered the classroom during 4th period math and identified herself. "Ma'am, I'm Deputy Hayes with the Sheriff's Department. I need to speak with you about your employment verification." The substitute pointed to the blackboard. Text appeared. "Class is in session. Please take a seat." Deputy Hayes, trained in maintaining authority in challenging situations, responded clearly. "Ma'am, I'm conducting an official investigation. I need you to step outside with me now." The substitute walked to where Deputy Hayes stood near the door. Every student in the classroom turned to watch. The substitute raised one hand and placed it near Deputy Hayes's radio without making contact. Deputy Hayes's radio began broadcasting in her own voice. All units, disregard previous call. Situation resolved, no assistance needed. But Deputy Hayes had not touched her radio. Her mouth was not moving. She was not speaking. Deputy Hayes left the classroom immediately and called for backup from her patrol car. When additional officers arrived 20 minutes later, the substitute was gone. The radio broadcasts in Deputy Hayes's voice continued sporadically for the next 4 hours, repeating the same message about resolved situations and no assistance needed.
Okay, well, this is interesting now. So, even I guess another thing is that I figured that I guess I can point out is not necessarily a kid, but I could be a kid. But whenever someone tries to interrupt them while they're trying to teach, with air quotes around it, they will be asked either leave, like watch quietly. Definitely something.
The Henderson County School District attempted coordinated removal yesterday morning. Superintendent Thomas Carter, accompanied by district security and local police, planned simultaneous interventions at 3 schools where substitutes had appeared. At exactly 10:30 a.m., teams entered classrooms at Madison Elementary, Creekview Middle School, and Northside High. Each team identified the unauthorized substitute and requested immediate departure. All 3 substitutes responded identically. They pointed to their respective blackboards, where the same text appeared simultaneously. Lessons in progress. Please observe classroom protocol. Every official involved in the removal attempt found themselves unable to leave the classrooms. The doors remained unlocked, the hallways were clear, but something prevented their departure. They could approach the doorway but could not cross the threshold. The substitutes conducted normal classroom activities for the remainder of the day while law enforcement and district officials sat in student desks, unable to leave. They were released only when the final bell rang and the substitutes departed. Reports now indicate these substitutes are no longer confined to single classrooms. Yesterday afternoon, parents arriving for pickup at Valley Elementary reported seeing identical figures standing at windows in 4 different buildings simultaneously. When parent Stephanie Davis approached one of the buildings to investigate, she observed the figure at the window turn to look directly at her. She reports that the figure's mouth moved as though speaking, but she heard the words from behind her own ear. Pickup is not scheduled for this location. Mrs. Davis immediately returned to her car and left campus. Her daughter was later found waiting in the correct pickup location, though no announcement had been made about the change. Most concerning, we have received reports of students recognizing these substitutes from schools they have never attended.
Oh, actually, that's something. That's now it's getting somewhere. So now instead of just like them going into classrooms and making them silent, other stuff, making them have memories of like not even being able to remember stuff that they did clearly.
8-year-old Jacob Miller told his parents, "That's the quiet teacher. She was at my old school too. She always knows when we're being too loud." Jacob attended Roosevelt Elementary for kindergarten and 1st grade before transferring to Brookside Elementary this year. Staff at both schools confirmed they have no employment records for anyone matching his description. Yet Jacob provides specific details about classroom interactions that other students corroborate. We believe these substitutes may represent a single phenomenon rather than multiple individuals.
That could make sense.
Affected students continue to exhibit changes weeks after their encounters. They speak more quietly in all settings. They respond immediately to
Well, I know like the librarians are gonna like
gestured instructions. They show reluctance to ask questions or volunteer information in any classroom environment. Silence means safety, but prolonged silence may be changing our children in ways we do not yet understand. If you encounter a substitute teacher who is not scheduled through official channels, follow these instructions immediately. Do not speak to them. Do not ask questions. Do not say hello or goodbye. Do not whisper to other students about their presence. Sit in your assigned seat and wait for written instructions to appear. Follow these instructions exactly, even if they seem unusual or contradict normal classroom procedures. If the substitute gestures toward you directly, remain motionless. Do not nod, shake your head, or make any vocal acknowledgement. Do not attempt to leave the classroom unless written permission appears on the board. If you experience physical discomfort during the class period, headaches, nausea, dizziness, or unusual sensations,
If
remain seated and silent.
or not.
These symptoms typically fade when the substitute leaves. We have documented what happens when these instructions are ignored.
Yeah,
Speaking to these substitutes has resulted in permanent voice changes for 43 students across 17 schools.
that is one of the things.
Physical
Yeah,
contact attempts have caused motor function disruption in 6 school staff members.
that has also
This
happened.
morning, substitute teachers appeared at 6 additional schools across 2 new counties. All incidents follow the established pattern: unauthorized appearance, nonverbal instruction,
Yep.
severe consequences for verbal interaction. We have issued closure orders for all affected schools until further notice. Do not attempt to retrieve personal belongings. Do not respond to any communications claiming to be from school officials unless you can verify the identity of the speaker through visual confirmation. If you receive a phone call about early dismissal, schedule changes, or emergency pickup procedures, hang up immediately. We have documented cases of these substitutes using school communication systems to make contact with families. If you see an individual in teacher attire standing motionless on school grounds after hours, do not approach. Do not call out to them. Do not attempt to determine if they need assistance. Remember, if a substitute teacher enters your classroom and you don't recognize them,
Stay silent.
do not speak. The silence that keeps you safe today may be preparing you for lessons we cannot yet understand. This broadcast will repeat in 30 minutes.
Okay.
Stay silent, stay safe, learn well.
Alrighty, guys. That's gonna be if a substitute teacher shows up in your classroom, stay silent. Now, of course, I don't know about you guys, but if a substitute teacher would actually show up, I would not say anything unless told. I'd probably just do. I'd just sit there and not even do any work. I'd probably just be on my phone. That is what I actually do. Like, until they say something, I don't really do so. So honestly, if this ever happens to me, I'm golden. Like, I actually, like, I would like be able to do it so easily. This is one of the easier ones, honestly. I feel like compared to the other ones, which is kind of difficult, especially that time looping one. That one was a little bit of a doozer. I cannot lie. I feel like that one I would not be able to get past unless if I get lucky enough to not get affected by it. But if I was affected, I'm cooked. The little house with the lights on fully, I think I could get past that one. I think I could definitely be able to do that one if I knew a little bit later, or if I just didn't live next to everybody else. Just lived in a complete middle of nowhere. But that would be it, guys, and I'll see you guys next Monday. Peace.